Hi everyone, I'm Alexander Zeitlin. This is the Lockdown Lecture Series for Beginner Viola, adapted from the Introductions course from Alios Music for the classroom setting. This is Lesson 4. So last week we learned how to apply our scale to figure out the fingerings for the rest of our songs, and your homework was to mark the rest of all of your nursery rhymes through the end of the page. So if you did your homework, it should look like this. Here are all the fingerings for Twinkle. You can go ahead and pause the video and check your work. Make sure it looks like this. And this is Are You Sleeping? Pause the video and check your work. And this is London Bridge. You can pause the video and check your work. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and play through these, Twinkle, Are You Sleeping, and London Bridge, and you guys can join me and just make sure you can keep up. So here is Twinkle. And here is Are You Sleeping? And lastly, here is London Bridge. So if you can keep up with that pretty well, then you've probably done your homework. Keep practicing them, because the more you know the left hand, the better your bow hand work will be when you start to add the bow. So speaking of which, you should also have been working on your whole bow exercises. You know, when you're working on the whole bow exercises, just making sure your fingers are sitting correctly, you're using that whole bow from frog to tip. And today we're going to apply that to our scale. Now, basically, you've done all the parts of this separately. You've plucked the left-hand notes for the scale. You have done whole bows on every string. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pick up your instrument, just like we talked about, always setting it up correctly. Shoulder, turn your chin, chin down, set up your bow. Make sure your hand is correct. Set it by the frog. Check that your thumb is curled, your pinky's curled, and so on. And you set it on the C string. And you're going to get your left hand ready. So what I recommend doing is taking that whole bow on C0 and then pause. Set your first finger down. Set C1 down and play C1. Pause. Set C2 down and play C2. And pause and set down C3. And roll your bow over to the G string and G0. And so on. You're going to work your way up the scale. And so now that you're playing with bows and left-hand fingerings, there's a couple things to watch out for. One is that when you're practicing, you are using your absolute whole bow. If I could describe the two biggest problems that beginners have, I would say that one is that probably their posture. Like this is the biggest beginner problem I've seen, is that beginners pick up their violin or the viola and hold it like this. It's on their collarbone and it's pointed down and it looks terrible, and also the sound is not really going in the right direction to have that violin and viola up in the right place. So the next thing that I see is I hear people play like this. And they get tiny short sound because they're only using this much bow in the middle of their bow, where it's the easiest to play. It's the easiest to play in the middle of the bow. It's hard to play at the frog. I'm sure you guys are already noticing because the bow feels very heavy there. It's hard to play at the tip because it's hard to keep the bow straight. It wants to kind of hook at the tip, but you have to keep it out and straight. So all of the things that we're doing right now, our C major scale, our songs that we'll be doing with the bow, is really just a disguise for more whole bow practice. So everything that you do is with absolute whole bow. So you would continue, G0. Make sure G1 is ready. Get all the way to the tip and then back to the frog. Pause at the metal guard. Make sure you're all the way over the metal guard. And all the way to the tip. Don't go so far in the tip that the bow slides off and then it falls off, but within like 1 inch of the tip. Okay, so, and you'll continue all the way up your scale that way and then all the way back down. At any point, if you're playing and you notice, your pinky is slipping or your thumb is flattening out or your hand is just tired, you can just pause, set your bow down, shake out your hand. I always think of like the tired, stressed feeling as like dirty water on your hand. You just want to like shake it off, relax that hand, pick up that bow again, and then try again. So let's go on to the songs. So if you feel like you can do your scale well, you may now move on to your songs. So you only take a song that you know how to pluck well, because if you can pluck it well, that means you know the left hand well. But basically, it's the same thing. You start with Mary Had a Little Lamb, get D1 ready, and you do whole bows. Now, it's very important you ignore all rhythm when you're doing these songs. What I like to see is I like to see someone be able to do just whole bows on all of these notes, and it should sound something like this. So you notice I didn't hold the half notes longer or the quarter notes shorter. I just did whole bows. But what I did get was really nice full sound on every note. It almost doesn't sound like the song. It almost sounds like you're actually just, playing whole bows on the notes. It sounds more like an exercise. And that is the best thing that you can do for studying all these songs. If you can get through all these songs with absolute good whole bows, a good sound on everything, you will be really well set. So in other words, even for Are You Sleeping, when you get to like these eighth notes, don't speed them up. Don't play them faster. Go slow and use whole bows. We will learn how to do rhythm and bow distribution for rhythm when we get to the Bach Minuet on the next page. Now, just a heads up for what's coming up. Your homework will be to learn all of these songs. So let's actually go ahead and update our homework list here. Set my instrument down so I can type it in. The first thing you should do when you're practicing is actually just do all of your plucking work, right? This just kind of warms up your left hand. So you should still be doing that. So you should do all plucking. The next thing you can do is you should always do your whole bow exercises. This is the only time that you will have to only focus on your right hand, because as soon as you're done with that, you will also be playing like all of your scales and notes with the left hand, and it's going to be even harder to focus on the right hand. So speaking of which, next is your scale with bow 3 times, and lastly your songs with bow 3 times. Don't go faster than you can play well. Don't learn a song with the bow unless you can really pluck it well first. Okay, be patient, get it right, the speed will come on its own. Try to play fast, it's going to be much harder to fix things. Just so you know what's coming up in the next lesson, what I'd like to see from every student before we move on to the Bach Minuet is that you can actually play all 4 songs in a row without putting down your instrument or putting your bow down. So that tells me that you have the stamina to play through a whole page, because the songs are at the most only 3 lines long, but the Bach Minuet is a whole page. So We want to make sure that you can comfortably play for that long. So the best thing that you can do to be be successful in that is not to practice all the songs together right away on this week. It's to learn each individual song really well. So that, all that said, most likely this is more than a week assignment. Especially if you're new to the instrument, this will probably take you a couple weeks to work on. Now I know you still have questions about, well, I might get crunchy sound, or my instrument's making sounds I don't like. That is the exact topic for the next lesson. We will learn exactly what you need to do to make the best sound that you can. But for this week, do your best. Play it gently and nicely on your instrument. Try to keep your bow just between the bridge and the fingerboard. So don't go too far over the fingerboard. Don't get too close to the bridge. Keep it right in the middle. Keep it straight. Try to have like a nice sound, gentle touch. And we will go over the details of how to make good sound and not make sound errors at the next lesson. All right, that's it. You have your homework, and I will see you guys at lesson 4 next time.